welcome to the Myths and Facts. We do this quite often, and what I love about it is it's a great opportunity to hear straight from the people who live here, what their experience is like, and I think the title "Myth versus Facts" is so perfect because when people think of retirement communities, we have this image in our minds. And I think at Terwilliger Plaza, we've really challenged that image over our history. And we're especially challenging it today with the addition of Parkview and just reinvesting in our community to enhance some of the existing spaces and position ourselves well for the future. It's an exciting time. We're in a vibrant location, yeah, I hope that we walk away from this with some additional kind of insights on what it's like to live here at Terwilliger Plaza. And then of course, I'd love to see you around the community as a result and get to know you better. But with that, I'll turn it back over to the team. Thanks again for joining us, and enjoy the presentation.
Awesome. Thank you, Ryan. This is really meant to be kind of more of a casual discussion, so hopefully you'll enjoy that nature of it. Ryan did mention the opening of Parkview. So Parkview is our newest building. Put a little plug in for that since we're here. It is 127 new homes that opened December 1st. So we do still have homes available in Parkview. We also have homes available in the Tower and the Heights, our other two independent living buildings. And some people don't know this, but we also welcome people from outside of our membership directly into our assisted living. So if you or someone you know might be interested in assisted living here at Terwilliger Plaza, please reach out to us. Most communities like ours do not allow admissions directly from the outside. So that's a unique thing that we offer here. Let's see, so our panelists today, again, these are all people who currently live here at Terwilliger Plaza. We have Todd and Susan Kummer. There they are in my screen there in the middle. We have Dennis McDonald. We have Pat Southard and Chris Mackert up there in my right corner. And then we have Pam Periani. So thank you for taking the time, panelists, to join. And of course, all of you who are here to hear about some of the things they were thinking about before they joined Terwilliger Plaza. I think we've got maybe 5 or 6 these are, we call them myths, but they're just common things that my team hears all the time of things that people are concerned about as they're looking to possibly come to a senior living community. And the one we hear quite a bit, the first one is, retirement communities are, they're going to take away my freedom, my privacy, and my purpose. Like I move in and it's like, it's time to like power down my life, So I'd like to maybe start with maybe Susan, if you want to talk a little bit about your experience with whether or not you've lost freedom, privacy, and purpose since you've joined Terwilliger Plaza.
Well, I would say that that's not true at all. We came here from Madison, Wisconsin. We've been here for 5 months. I think we were probably 5 years ago sort of in denial about getting older and needing to make decisions, but we have a number of friends who have had health emergencies, and we lost a dear friend. And we also have some good friends that made this decision a few years ago and told us that it was a really soft landing. And so we looked at places both in Madison and out here in Portland area because our son and grandchildren are here. It was, we actually made the move probably mostly to be close to our grandchildren, but I would also say that it wasn't until we saw Terwilliger Plaza, we said, yes, we're ready to do this now. And we have with really a new sense of being at home in a very short period of time. We've really enjoyed the people we've met here, and there've been a lot of small world experiences in terms of connecting with people that are from other parts of the country as well as here in Portland.
Wonderful. Thank you, Susan. And I'll let the other panelists, if you want to just chime in and add on to that if you'd like.
Yeah, Teresa, I just might mention, in so many ways, I almost feel like I've gained more freedoms here. And some of them are just kind of so basic, but, you know, I owned a home here in Portland before I sold it and moved here. And, you know, that always comes with the maintenance issues. And here, I just don't have maintenance issues to worry about. Can be a quick phone call or a quick email if I need anything. I've enjoyed kind of the freedom of dining. If I don't feel like cooking, I've got plenty of options here. I just think anybody here can kind of make a lot of their own choices about, you know, the activities they get involved with, the people they enjoy. And I think it's really totally the opposite from feeling a lack of freedom or privacy. It's an extremely comfortable environment. And I'm going to go ahead and comment that Susan and Todd are my neighbors, and they're fabulous neighbors. Right next door, right next door.
We enjoy having you as our neighbor.
Yeah, it's fun stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway, just that observation, Teresa.
Thank you.
So the one thing that I would say is when people talk about life coming to an end, I think that being here is so enriching, so incredibly enriching. There are the gym, the pool, the personal trainers, the movies, the Friday night music, the Saturday forum. I mean, it is at your fingertips. Everything you used to have to drive to try and find parking, to try and do all that. So it is an absolute joy to have all of that stuff available. Plus, just the people who live here have such great, interesting backgrounds. So much fun to listen to and talk to.
Pat and I have met some really wonderful friends so far and have enjoyed so much. And I think that Pat stated this very, very appropriately the other day when she said, you know, every day I get up and I feel like I'm on vacation. So we never felt that way, having a house to have to take care of.
Yeah, I'd just like to second that. We were very active in the Madison community, but every time you wanted to do something, we had to get in the car and drive somewhere to see friends, to participate in something. And here, there is so much going on. There's activities, there's films, there's you name it. But you can also pick and choose what you want. You're not forced to do a thing. But we walk out of our apartment and we take the elevator down and we can get involved in a few minutes. It's not a matter of, gee, what's the weather like? Do I have to wear a raincoat, a hooded blazer in the wintertime in Wisconsin when it's 20 degrees below or something? We're just happily going about our business, and it's very convenient and very, very pleasant environment to live in.
Thank you so much. So another thing that we hear a lot, especially in the Portland arena, because we do have some for-profit communities here and we have some nonprofit communities like ours. A lot of times we hear that don't want to live in a community where the decisions are made kind of in a corporate office in some other state somewhere else. So maybe, Dennis, I think you had, or maybe your aunt had an experience, but just maybe each, whoever wants to chime in can talk a little bit about whether or not it was important to, we've got Ryan and Andy right on here. We don't say anything bad about them, but communities, you absolutely cannot just walk down the hall and knock on the CEO's door and say, do you have a minute? So Dennis, if you want to address that.
I noted when I first started looking at Terwilliger that about the governance structure here, and that a majority of the board of directors were actually residents in the community. And I thought, oh, that's very interesting, because I had had a few relatives who had been in retirement communities, and there was sometimes some friction because of decisions being made without the residents being a part of that. But when I got here, I found something that exceeded my expectations with respect to that, and that is everybody here takes that very seriously.
Mhm.
So that not only does the board have, the board of directors have members on the board who are making decisions, but there is a residents' council here that is elected by the residents. They meet monthly. There's a report from each of the floors or combinations of floors by representatives from the floors who are elected. And they serve as a medium to transfer information on up to the board of directors. And I can tell you that the culture here is that we're in charge in a sense, because if we something we don't like and we don't say anything about it, that's our problem. Then it's not the problem of the corporate structure. So I really appreciate that.
One of the things I really like is that Ryan sends out a weekly briefing on email that updates everything that's going on, whether it's in Parkview or the tower or wherever. And that's very helpful to be keeping in touch with what is going on and what's happening. And then on top of that, the resident council representatives are always emailing, here's a new question, here's what I found out for you. I mean, they're very extremely active. They're very tuned in to figuring out how to solve the problem you have, particularly at that level. And if they can't, then it moves up the line. But you always get responses, you always know they're working on it, and you usually get a solution. So I think that's a really great thing.
Yeah, Teresa, my impression is that as has been described, in the absence of a corporation, and then with our self-governance and that structure that I think everybody's described quite well, my observation is that sense of a vested interest
Mhm.
in where we all live and with whom we all live. And I think that vested interest is a very positive kind of characteristic of living here. You know, people just, I think, really think, try and think very clearly and be very mindful of decisions and mindful of participating. I'm feeling very positive about that kind of sense of vested interest that I have picked up.
I would add to that I think that's what builds a real sense of community here. And that's one of the things that we've really appreciated, is it really brings people out in terms of learning who they are and where they're from. Just the whole attitude of participation and taking some responsibility. And I am very appreciative of the fact that this feels like a community and not just people living in individual apartments.
Mhm.
I see the yellow box around Todd. Were you wanting to say something? No, okay.
No, I guess I would just second everything that's been said. I guess I would add one other thing that, I wasn't expecting to find the CEO, Ryan, walking around the halls. I could interact with him. He comes to some social events, and I wasn't expecting that at all. And so I just want to highlight the fact that the management, we see the management in the hallways. It's not like they're tucked away in some corner and where's that corner and what are they doing kind of thing. So I think, and I've just been totally impressed with that and how friendly Ryan and all the staff have been. I've just been very pleased with that.
Well, and I'll add, even though this is not about working here, but I will add that I have worked for several different corporations, and it is quite a joy and pleasure to work in a community where you do have, the higher ups, whatever you want to call them, here and available and wanting to get to know you and so on and so forth. So I think rumor has it Andy, our COO, she's learning Spanish in one of our Spanish classes that the members organize. So if you see Andy, you might try to throw her a few Spanish words and see how she does.
Okay.
Sí, es verdad. Yes, that's true. Yeah, every Friday I try to join our Spanish club for lunch. It's a blast. I love it.
Awesome. She's trying to talk me into going, but so far I haven't made it over there. So, okay, yeah, and just kind of following up on that. I mean, we have looked and looked, and to the best of our knowledge, we cannot find another community in the nation who has the same representative self-governance model that we do. So it is unique. So if it seems too good to be true or odd or whatever you want to call it, it's unique. Let's see. One of the things we hear a lot, probably maybe one of the top ones, Jojo and Jess, you probably hear this every day. Well, we're still healthy. You know, we don't need a community. You know, when we need healthcare, we're just going to get in-home care, and we're still healthy. We don't, you know, nothing bad has happened, so we're just going to hang tight. Pat, I think you had, or yeah, I think you had mentioned.
Yeah, my friend, yeah. I do think that when you're healthy and you're moving older is the time to consider going, because that's when you're able to take advantage of all the things that are here and extend your vitality that way. And you know, the thing that was a very driving force for the two of us was, I have a very good friend who is a professor of neurology at the university here. And we had dinner with her and her husband one night, and she was talking about her Parkinson's patients. And she said, the saddest thing for her is when somebody has been healthy, going along, and then they have a health crisis that's going to force them out of their house. And at that point, they have to end up living at a place they might never have chosen if they had been able to think about that when they were healthy. And she said, it is just tremendously sad to see that happen. And that kind of galvanized the two of us into thinking that we live in a house with 3 levels of stairs. There's just no way. I'm 77,
I'm 87.
and there was no way we were going to keep being able to do that.
And this makes it really very easy. And it was difficult for us to make the transition in terms of my physical abilities. But we are so glad to have had this happen and to be able to have made it while we can still both function well.
Yeah, I'd like to speak to that also, because I was one of those people who was living at home alone. Never had any major health problems in my life. I'm 79 years old. Did all my own maintenance of the house and the lawn mowing and all that. And then, bam, out of nowhere, suddenly, a health problem showed up. I won't go into the details, except I was hospitalized with urgent surgery. And after 6 days in the hospital, they said, you're free to go home. Well, I was free to go home, but I certainly couldn't take care of myself. And my one daughter lived about half a mile away and another daughter out of state. Well, guess who pitches in then? The kids. And we all, the 3 of us, learned that, boy, does that change life for all of us. Because I needed to have someone in the house with me 24/7. I had home health care come in with some rehab stuff 2-3 times a week for an hour. But other than that, the burden fell on them to do the cooking and help me with my bathing and all that sort of stuff. So when I recovered and got back to normal, then I started thinking, people have been saying, make the decision when you can, and you can make the choices and do it before your kids have to force you to do it. And so that was one of the big reasons that I decided to make the move now when I was able to do it.
Oh, that's so good.
I think there's another dimension to that. And that is while we were still healthy, we were able to downsize and not have that expect our kids to step in and do it on the spur of the moment someday when we had to move out for a health reason, whatever. Our son we were in Madison, our daughter lived there, our son out here, and it would have been a real burden on them to downsize. We lived there 50 years, so I think you probably know what that means in terms of your home and belongings. So we were able to downsize while we were healthy and keep the things we wanted and get rid of the things we didn't want. And that's really, it's been a good exercise for us. And we're thankful that now our children will not have to do it for us someday.
I would just add that before I retired, well, gosh, back in 2016, I was an estate planning attorney here locally. And many of my clients were seniors. And over the years, gosh, I learned a lot from them. And I kind of started to take some cues and make some observations that indeed it's the case that many folks, feel they're healthy. I'm going to stay in my house. That's extremely common. But what I observed is those of my clients who kind of stepped back and said basically to themselves, I want to make a choice while I'm capable of doing so, and I want to feel I'm in control. And when I saw that route being taken, it usually resulted in a very positive situation for that client and their family. The not so positive situations were where there would be some kind of emergency and medical care and caregivers and families being called upon a lot. And in those situations, it just very often ended up more sad than anything else, because the ability to choose was actually taken away from my client. So I just kind of observed things over the years through my client's eyes, and that sort of motivated me to probably make a little bit of an early change, but one that I have no regrets about.
Thank you. It is tough, but what you just said, Pam, about people wanting to stay in control, that's, even though we don't hear people say that, but that is what most people want. They don't want to burden their kids. And frankly, not all of us have kids. I mean, I think half of the people on our panel today don't have children. So, I mean, Dennis was lucky enough to have that as an option, but not everyone does. So I appreciate your input on that. And it is important to try to have choice.
I think it's, just really natural thing and pretty universal to want to stay in one comfort zone, and the home you've lived in is that place. And as long as you're healthy, that works. But I think coming to the realization that we are definitely all getting older, and we can't predict what our health will be, really makes it important to consider what makes sense for the next chapter. And I really am happy at this point that only 5 months in, we feel like we are in a new home, and we feel like even though we've given up being close to a lot of our friends in our community, that we really do feel at home here and feel comfortable. So I think that it's good to know that you can open this new chapter, and it's important, I think, to have enough energy and be well enough to really connect with your the new community that you're moving into.
Thank you, Susan. So we've covered quite a bit. There's one other comment that we hear. And that is, you know, coming to a community like this doesn't make sense to me. My house is paid off. You know, I live here for free, essentially. So maybe we can have a little bit of a few comments on that. And because I think, I think everybody here, you know, you all had a house and probably most of them were paid off. So how did you process that piece of it?
Well, it's a big decision. Because if you say I'm living in my house for free, you need to think about garbage, water, all of the extra things you have to pay for. And water in this city is like having a kid going to college anymore. It's so expensive. So you have to factor all of those things in to be able to say, yes, the house is paid off, you know, but this is not a free thing. And if my freezer went out, it took 2 weeks for me to get somebody to come and fix the freezer. Here, it takes maybe 4 hours if something goes wrong, and that's at the outside of it. So if you weigh the pros and cons, there's just no question that you're going to end up on the pro side of thinking of moving to someplace like this.
Yeah, I would like to mention what turned the trick for me when I first started looking at CCRCs and at Terwilliger, and I said, "Wow, those move-in fees! Wow, those are really expensive."
Yeah.
But then, as I began to try to think outside the box a little bit, I thought, well, I have all this equity in my house. My house is paid off. I have all this equity. If I were to move to, let's say, Terwilliger, if I transferred some of that equity to pay the membership fee, well, a large part of that membership fee is it's sort of like an insurance policy. That is, you're paying ahead for the anticipation of future health care as you move into later stages of life and to higher levels of care. So instead of my equity sitting there in my house doing nothing, now my equity is here as a pay forward for my health care in the future. And I don't have to worry about, oh, you know, if I have to move to assisted living, how am I going to pay for that? Well, I do have insurance that would pay part of it, but I've already paid part of that in the sense of the insurance policy of that membership fee.
Did anyone else, Pam, I don't know if you wanted to add to that on the cost comparison that helped you with that
Well,
question?
yeah, just maybe a couple of other points, but I must say, I think Dennis's approach and sort of how he looked at the cost benefit and kind of transferring an equity of a house to an equity of healthcare, I think that's a really kind of meaningful metaphor there. I think for myself, you know, yes, own a nice little Portland house, and, you know, just as Pat and everybody's, you know, when you look at what you actually really do spend every month for, and I know Judy O'Donnell here, our CFO, has a great worksheet that can help you kind of just, okay, work through what am I paying here at my home, and then what do I not pay going forward. It's very illustrative. I'd highly, highly recommend it. I certainly worked with my financial advisor on, you know, sort of a multi-year look at what the impact, et cetera. And having felt pretty confident in that, I just sort of wrapped up my decision under this concept of healthcare. And I made a very kind of broad definition of healthcare. And by that, I mean, I'm single, I don't have children, yes, nieces and nephews dotted around the country, but I've always felt I really need to, just make sure I'm taking care of myself, taking responsibility for myself. So I felt in coming into a community like Terwilliger, I would really pretty much get my maximum health care. And by that, I mean the nature of the community, the people around me, the activities. In other words, a very good kind of social and emotional setting. And so far, my decision is proving absolutely correct.
Thank you, Pam. Anyone else on the panel want to add any last comments before we open for Q&A? All right.
I would, I don't know if this would be the appropriate time or if it might come up in the Q&A. But for me, the most important reason for coming here when I did was my wife had passed away in 2020. There was the pandemic. I was living in a small subdivision, in a rural subdivision. So, boy, was I lonely. It was just, I mean, I couldn't believe how lonely I was, even though my daughter lived just half a mile away and I would see her every day for a little while. Still, it was just, it was miserable. Now contrast that to what I found when I came here. If I'm feeling a little down because I'm lonely, like some morning or some evening, all I have to do is open my door, walk down the hall, maybe get on the elevator. I can always find people to talk to meet some new people or some old friends that I've met. And all of the activities that I'm in, a science club and our floor activities that we have, book clubs, Friday night music, there's always something going on with people. And I can tell you that it is true that one of the worst things about getting older is social isolation, if you get into that. And there's no social isolation here anymore, and I love it. It was just exactly what I needed. The loneliness is essentially gone, and if it comes back, like I said, I can always solve it in a matter of a few minutes.
Yeah. Well, the other thing that happened yesterday was the announcement that there's an automatic wine bar that you can, in the South Lounge, that you can get a card for charging and then get your wine dispensed. So I'll tell you, that's going to make for even more happy hour time down there.
Oh, that's funny. Yes. I have inquired with Ron in the dining room on how we might get a card for marketing so we can potentially buy a glass of wine for Ryan's closing his ears. Yes, we do.
Changing the topic dramatically. Just like to say something about, Sue and I have been really concerned with environmental conservation our entire life in terms of where we've lived, and how we've constructed our houses and so forth. And one of the big draws to Terwilliger Plaza was this building we're in, Parkview, is incredibly efficient, conservation of natural resources. And now Terwilliger has put photovoltaic cells on all the buildings to collect energy from the sun. And that was a really important thing for us as we were looking around. Just knowing that we were downsizing and we were going to be conserving electricity, conserving our natural resources. And I think that's a really important thing for all of us to be thinking about for ourselves, but the next generations to come. So that was an important thing for us. If it's important to you, I think that's something to consider.
In terms of aging in place, which seemed attractive at one point, you come to the realization that there are a lot of hidden costs, and not only in upkeep of the home that you're in and you're less able to do it, but when it comes time to need assistance, I think COVID really drove home the fact that the workforce is really not able to meet some of the needs of people living at home. And so getting that care and paying for it and so forth, making those decisions could be very stressful.
Customer that wanted to ask the panelist, she's not a social butterfly. And how would that go over at Terwilliger Plaza? Are people knocking on her door? Is she required to go to activities? So I thought maybe people might be able to comment to that.
I saw that question, Jojo, and I assumed it wasn't about you since I know for sure you're not an introvert.
I think that is a legitimate question, but I think here, what I've experienced is people can act and interact to their own extent as much as they want. There is not a lot of intrusion on people's time or people's personalities. But if you want to be an extrovert and go out and enjoy yourself, it is that you can find people outside your door, and you can go down in the elevator and you'll always have somebody to talk to. So it's a matter of what each individual wants, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's definitely no requirements. We don't keep track of what, like, you don't have to go to like 10 events a month or anything like that. As a matter of fact, we actually have a lot of couples where a community like this is perfect, because inevitably, I'm not going to name names, but I happen to know several couples here who one of them is like, leave me alone. I'm reading my books. I'm doing my stuff. Don't want to go out to any programs. And the other one is like literally dying, like Dennett. I mean, so lonely and so craving human interaction. So it's perfect. I mean, the one gets to go out and do their interaction and the other one gets to stay in the home, and it's great.
Yeah, exactly.
Teresa, I'll share a little story. I interacted with a new member of our community after about a month, just checking in, how's things going so far? The response was, I'm exhausted because there are so many things to do every day that I feel like I have FOMO, fear of missing out, because they said they take a day where they're going to just relax, and then they look at the calendar and they see something exciting. Next thing they know, they're, heading out the door to go to our next activity or program or lecture or whatever else it is. It was not the reaction or the response I was thinking I was going to get, but it was pretty telling about how active this community is.
I think another really important piece is that most of these events are televised on your TV through the in-house channel. So if you don't really want to go out, but you're interested in it, you can sit and watch it on TV. I mean, it's very handy. So it accommodates everybody's needs, their choices, and whatever they want to do.
I was just going to mention that, Pat, because last Friday at 2 p.m. we had 3 musicians from the Oregon Symphony performing in our auditorium. And it was great. I mean, there was probably 50 or 75 people in person enjoying the music, but if you don't, you're not feeling up to it, doesn't matter why, you can just watch it in the comfort of your own home, and it's quite nice. All right. Let's see. What was hardest in making the transition? What do you still miss?
Was before moving in. And all I mean by that is the process of, selling the home, downsizing. I mean, I had a huge checklist for months of things to do. So I think the sooner one gets started on that process, the easier the transition will be. To me, that was pretty much the only really kind of significant hard part was just getting ready, getting the house sold, the downsizing. yeah, that would be my take on it. I just encourage people to get started on that, if only just to think about it. And start to get an action plan maybe.
Pam, what do you miss the most?
I lived in a nearby neighborhood that had has two grade schools. And I just loved watching the kids and their parents walk to and from school. It just was kind of a daily delight to see that and chat with the parents, et cetera. So when I moved here, I kind of felt that, but I can look out my window or sit on my balcony, and now I overlook Dunaway Park and track and field, which is just filled with kids doing soccer and lacrosse and track and field. And there's just so much energy going on out there. And then sometimes I'll just go down and I'll walk around the track and look at them, et cetera. Anyway, so the thing that I really missed, I have found a substitute here at Terwilliger.
Well, we lived in our house 50 years and we had wonderful neighbors. So I miss having our neighbors, but we see them pretty frequently. We either go back to the east side or they come over and visit us. So we didn't give it up, but it is, you don't just get to walk out the door and see somebody who you really care about in your neighborhood. But I can walk out the door here and see people that I'm starting to really care about. So 50-50.
Yeah.
I'd have to say, as we've mentioned, we moved from out of state. So moving into Terwilliger was the easy part. Let me tell you.
Oh,
Right away, we were welcomed into this community. We got to know lots of people, became active. The hardest part was all the things you have to do by moving into a new state. Yesterday, we finally got our driver's licenses. Probably the last step. But it's all happened, and it's just takes some perseverance. But really, moving into a community where you feel comfortable knowing people made it easy for all that other difficult stuff to happen. And there are some challenges moving in from out of state, but it's doable. You just have to persevere and, you know, have a sense of humor and enjoy the company you're in while you're doing it.
Yeah, I will second what people have said. The most difficult thing was the estate sale, and selling the house went fairly easy. But I did find someone who was very experienced at doing estate sales in the house, and he told me, he said, once you've picked out what you're going to take with you and sequestered that into a lockable room, you know, the best thing you can do is get out of town. And that's what I did, and left it in his hands, and came here. And boy, I tell you, one of the other parts of the culture here is to welcome new people. And so there were all kinds of things, including, you know, people on the welcoming committee inviting me to go out to dinner with them and get to know me and answer questions and that sort of thing. And the people on the floor said, "Oh, how nice to have you here. We have our floor meetings at 4 p.m. Be sure and come." And I mean, there really is a culture of a welcoming culture here to welcome in the new neighbors. And I do feel like now I'm living in a neighborhood of people, especially on my floor. I mean, I just casually see them many times a day and say hello and chat about the weather. You know, it's so that part of it was easy. It was the before getting here that was the difficult thing.
This one, maybe Ryan, I don't know if you want to chime in on this one. How does the structure of the self-governance impact the financial stability? I'm concerned about cost stability.
Yeah, so the board of directors approves the annual budget every year that the different departments compile together. As for just kind of understanding and having confidence in our financial position and our future, we really benefit from outside assessments that we opt into. Some are required, some are voluntary. So of course we have our annual audit. We publish the results of that. We're also, because we just built Parkview, we we have a Fitch rating. So Fitch every year assesses our financial position and issues us their rating. They've rated us as stable with a positive outlook. And we have a voluntary survey that we do. It's called CARF, C-A-R-F. And that is it's an annual kind of re-accreditation process. They look at us annually, but they approve us for 5 years. We just went through our last accreditation and we got our 5-year renewal. And there's only about 10% of all CCRCs in the United States that go for this voluntary accreditation. And they don't only look at the financial position, although that's a big part of what they look at. They also look at the quality of care, service, member resident experience, as well as team member experience. And then there's also family member involvement, especially in the assisted living area they're actually interviewed, and that goes into part of the accreditation process. So there's quite a few different resources that are available to determine, where our current position's at, what our future looks like. Internally, we also have actuarial projections done each year, revised each year, that show an outlook for our financial health that the board reviews, as well as the finance committee of the board that has some just volunteer members that attend that are not on the board. So those we kind of put all that together to make sure that we're providing kind of a transparency to where we are at and where we're going. I imagine some of what I was saying was things that the people on this panel looked at and considered as part of their decision-making process as well.
What if one spouse needs, thank you, Roger, one spouse needs assisted living, but the other does not? So we do have, and obviously this is a very specific question. So Roger, maybe we could have a one-on-one conversation too, but we have several couples where one person does in fact need quite a bit more assistance than the other. And it depends on the couple. Some people say, no way, it doesn't matter, whoever needs help, we're both going to assisted living together. I would say that's a little more rare. And then we also have people where one person lives in an independent living apartment and one person lives in assisted living, and they see each other every day. Oftentimes what will happen is if someone is needing a lot more care, if you continue living together, the person in that relationship who doesn't need as much care ends up being a caregiver, and not only physically, but emotionally can get very, very tired. And so sometimes, and you can work, this isn't necessarily a decision you would make on your own, or you could, of course, if you want to, but we have a healthcare team here. We also have a fantastic director of social services. Her name is Katrina. And these are the types of things that she can help families and our members think about and say, well, what is best? Because trust me, it's not a one size fits all. So that's why I say it's very specific. So, there is cost involved. If one's in independent living and one's in assisted living, our assisted living has 24/7 licensed nurses. So, if you don't need that level of care, perhaps maybe you could try being in independent living with in-home care. So there's lots of different options. But yes, we do have people who do not live in the same home.
I would add that having looked at a number of places, both in Oregon and in Wisconsin, while some of them had dementia care in the same facility, most of them required, had the assisted living care at some distance away, whether it was a couple blocks or across town, but the logistics would be much more difficult for a remaining spouse to deal with and to stay in touch with their loved ones. So we were really impressed that here that assisted living care is available without leaving the building. You can just go to another wing of the building, and that provides a certain amount of comfort to know that that is available and accessible.
Yesterday, I joined, probably a good other, maybe 15 community members. And Katrina took us on a tour of the assisted living facilities, the Terrace and the Metcalf. And I'm really glad I did it. It really kind of opened my eyes to what the services are there. And I was particularly struck with how in the assisted living context, there appeared to me to still be a great amount of integration with the rest of the community. So if I were in assisted living, if I wanted and could go to the dining room, it's there. If I wanted to and could go to the wellness center, it's there. And as well as having the great healthcare provided by the staff. But I guess I just hadn't really thought through how kind of well integrated and connected the assisted living facilities are with the rest of us and vice versa.
Pat and Pam, I think you both mentioned some comment about how safe you feel here and how, maybe compared to where you were, or I don't know if that played into your decision necessarily.
Yeah, that's right. Well, the neighborhood I came from was just fine. That I really had no safety or security concerns, but I have chuckled a little bit since moving here. I think on a couple of occasions I've said to my friends, particularly when they pick me up, and I'm here in Parkview, so you kind of go through this concierge valet thing. And I've told them that I feel like I'm in the Fort Knox of senior living. And really, and I mean that very positively. I just feel extremely safe and secure. Be it the valet guys or the security guards or the wonderful people at our front desk. Just all in all, it's a very strong feeling of security, and it's just kind of another sort of aspect of freedom, I think, that there's not any burden whatsoever, at least for me, of being concerned about my safety and security.
We, several years ago, quit answering our front door unless we knew somebody, and our neighborhood was fine. But I just felt like I didn't want to open the door to somebody I did not know. And here they call and say, so-and-so is here, shall we send them up? It's like, yeah, that's very handy, and so that wasn't a big concern, but it's nice to know if somebody is coming up to your door that you know who it is coming.
Thank you. How is access to public transportation?
Excellent.
Yeah.
You just walk out the door.
Yeah, we learned how to use the public transportation real fast. It's easy.
Well, we're happy to do it too. I mean, it's a not only a way to use less energy, but you don't have to deal with the traffic and the parking hassles that would come with driving your own vehicle. We do both, but we really appreciate having the option for very dependable public service.
Maybe related to that, should we mention we're right next to Portland State University, which of course I knew nothing about before moving here, but we as seniors, we're eligible for a reasonable, I think it's $25 fee, one-time fee, which is ridiculous, to take courses there and have access to all their facilities, which are a matter of 10 or 15-minute walk away.
I would say, in addition to all of the amazing people who live here, two of the other big reasons why a lot of people choose Terwilliger Plaza is, one, the proximity to Portland State, like you just mentioned, Todd, and two is the access to public transportation. Portland, for those of you who aren't from here, Portland is definitely known for excellent public transportation. And Susan, no, we are not, quote, right on the Max, but we're a few blocks away from the Max. So we do have people who just walk down and jump on the Max a few blocks away. but yeah, people just take the bus up to OHSU if they have an appointment up there. It's all very accessible and very easy. Several people here don't have cars. We did recently add, if you're, want to do something a little bit longer, or maybe somewhere that doesn't go on the bus, isn't on the bus path. We also have a zip car that's stationed here at Terwilliger Plaza. So if you wanted to grab the zip car for the day or for an afternoon, you can do that as well.
Teresa, I'd like to
Yes.
jump back to the comment about how young we are at 80 and say something about the wellness program here, which is just excellent. I've been in many different kinds of exercise and yoga programs over the years, but I am really, really amazed at how varied the program is, how it is really calibrated to different levels so that some of us do more aerobic things and some less, but it's just a really good way to stay active at the level you're capable of doing.
Well, the other thing is they have personal trainers who are the most amazing people to work with. If you have been used to going to a gym with a personal trainer and it's a gym full of hard bodies, they're not really tuned in to people who are a little on the older side and the pushing can be too much. The personal trainers here are so aware of that. And they're always checking in. Are you doing okay? Is everything, do you need a water break? And I'm like, well, once I get off the floor, yeah, I would like to get a drink of water. So they are extremely, extremely good. And every single member of the staff is happy, accommodating. They act like you're never putting them out. They are so welcoming. And when we have people come, that front desk and Sergio and the valet is just so nice. Everybody comments on how nice it is. And we have some friends who live down in the Pearl and have lived there for many years. And when they came to visit, they were like, whoa, this place is beautiful. But there is no place where we live that has the kind of artwork this place has, the kind of lounges, the kind of gathering areas. They were completely blown away at how incredibly beautiful this is. So it's kind of fun to show it off.
Thank you for showing us off.
Yeah.
Thank you again, everyone who's on the call, for taking time to visit with us today, and especially our panelists. I know everyone's busy, like you already heard. There's a lot going on. So these members did take time away from other things that they could have been doing. So thank you. We really appreciate it.